Many of you may not have noticed yet, but there is a new richest man in Germany. His wealth has increased so rapidly in the last 5 years that in 2021, he first overtook BMW heiress Suzanne Klatten, then shortly afterwards passed the Aldi heirs, and finally in 2024 he replaced Lidl founder Dieter Schwartz as the richest man in Germany. Today he has an estimated fortune of over $42 billion, and he owes this in large part to his many bold investments, whereby the word bold is no coincidence in this case, as his name is Klaus Michael Kühne. Hello and welcome to the Queen Luxus podcast. Geopolitical Queen here with today's episode on how this German millionaire came by his incredible wealth and also how crazy he lives. Klaus Michael Kühne manages several global corporations, has numerous residences, and privately spends tens of millions on his lifestyle. He is involved in German politics and is behind many of the most exciting projects in Germany. His wealth also has something to do with the darkest chapter in German history. So who is Klaus Michael Kühne, anyway? Kühne was born on July 2nd, 1937, in Hamburg, as a son of a freight forwarding agent, Alfred Kühne, who was already in the third generation to run the family business, Kühne and Nagel. Although Kühne's childhood was shaped by the rule of the Nazi regime and the Second World War, his family was doing quite well at the time. The family-owned logistics company was recognized by the Nazis as a National Socialist model company and was even given an important Grand Council member by the Nazi regime, which made the company even more successful. Kühne and Nagel transported Jewish property stolen by the Nazis from other European countries to Germany, but that wasn't all. Kühne's father Alfred and his uncle Werner also enriched themselves in other ways at the expense of the Jewish people. At that time, a Jewish manager named Adolf Mars owned 45% of Kühne and Nagel. After the Nazis came to power in 1933, the brothers took advantage of the growing anti-Semitism and pushed him out of the company. In the end, they essentially snatched his shares for themselves. If that hadn't happened, Klaus Michael Kühne would never have been either. 100% owned by Kühne and Nagel, and would probably not be the richest man in Germany today, but back to Kühne's career after the Second World War. He attended the Heinrich Hertz Schule in Hamburg, where he finally got his Abitur. After that, he did an apprenticeship at a private bank in Hamburg, but not because he ever wanted to be a banker. It was mainly about learning commercial skills because it was clear that he would take over the family business afterwards, and that happened at the age of 26. He became a shareholder of Kühne and Nagel, and at 29, he finally became the chairman of the board, which nobody expected at the time, not even Kühne's father himself. What Klaus Michael Kühne did in the following years, he moved the headquarters of the company, which had been based in Hamburg for over 70 years, suddenly to Switzerland, amongst other things, to save taxes then. Kühne started to set up new offices all over the world, all over the West and East of Europe, in China, in the USA, and the Middle East. Thus, Kühne and Nagel quickly went from being a medium-sized German freight forwarding company to a global logistics company. But at the beginning of the 80s, there was a huge crisis. At that time, Klaus Michael Kühne wanted to set up a logistics shop and bought 5 gigantic container ships on credit. In 1981, the oil crisis suddenly came, and the ships were suddenly worth much less than before. His banks and lenders wanted their money back, so Klaus Michael Kühne was finally forced to sell half of his company. 1981 was also a fateful year for Kühne personally, as his father, who had always supported Kühne in running the company up until then, died after a long illness. Looking back, Kühne himself says that this year has shaped him to this day. Losing his father and half of his company at the same time, left a trauma in him that probably still drives him today. In the years following the crisis, Kühne fought his way back and was finally able to buy back the half of his company that he had lost at the beginning of the 90s. After that, he expanded further and further. Today, Kühne and Nagel is the third largest logistics empire in the world, only behind DHL and FedEx. The group employs over 94,000 people, has thousands of warehouses, and makes billions in profits. But that's not all. Klaus Michael Kühne is no longer just the majority owner of Kühne and Nagel. He also owns 30% of the world-famous Hapag-Lloyd Logistics Company, 17.5% of the shares in Lufthansa, and even 35% of Flix SE, the company behind Flixbus. But how does he leave these days? For an 87-year-old, he's actually still surprisingly active and has by no means retired anywhere. Instead, he has several residences. Firstly, he has a luxury villa in the Swiss town of Schindellegi, just a few kilometers from the headquarters of Kühne and Nagel. Till today, Kühne regularly oversees the company's business and takes part in meetings. Kühne spends time in Mallorca, however. He bought a 5,000 square kilometer estate there at the end of the 90s. The villa has a pool, its own tennis court, and a fantastic view of the Mediterranean. In 2024, an investor wanted to buy the property next to Kühne's villa to build another luxury villa. Klaus Michael Kühne didn't want to tolerate the months of construction noise and simply bought the property himself for 17 million euros. He now actually owns several of the properties surrounding his estate. Incidentally, Kühne originally bought his villa in Mallorca only at the request of his wife Christine, who at the time really wanted to relocate to Mallorca. Speaking of his wife, she actually changed Kühne's life in many other ways. Kühne met his wife when they were both over 50. Before that, according to his own statements, he was only interested in business and worked far too much. However, since meeting his wife, he has devoted himself to other things. The two regularly vacation on Kühne's yacht and are apparently still in love. Kühne still regularly writes love poems to his wife. It was his wife who introduced Kühne to classical music. He has since become such a big fan of classical music that he donates millions of euros annually. For example, he wants to donate to the Salzburg Festival, the Lucerne Festival, the Zurich Opera House, or to the Elbe Philharmonic Hall in Hamburg, the construction of which he supported with 5 million euros. Speaking of Hamburg, the Hamburg native is still very loyal to his city and visits it regularly. There, he stays in a suite at the luxury hotel The Fontaine, which is located directly on the outer Ulster. Why exactly is there? The hotel belongs to Kühne. He had it built in 2015 for 100 million euros. The Fontaine is by no means Kühne's only project in his hometown. Besides the luxury hotel, Kühne has also built his own university in Hamburg, the Kühne Logistics University, which now employs almost 45 professors and over 200 people. But a billionaire like Kühne wouldn't be a real billionaire if he wasn't also involved in his hometown's football club. Kühne has been HSV's most important investor for 15 years, and he now owns almost 20% of the club. He has financed numerous transfers for the club over the years and had the HSV Stadium renamed Volkspark Stadion. His bold commitment to Hamburg is far from over. On the contrary, Kühne plans to finally leave his mark on Germany's most important port city in the next few years. Just in February 2025, he announced that he would be giving the city of Hamburg an incredible gift. On the Birkenhof Peninsula, directly in the port of Hamburg, Kühne is having a new opera house built for Hamburg for an incredible 1 billion euros. It is supposed to be a world-class opera house, as legendary as the Sydney Opera House or the Oslo Opera House, and Kühne actually wants to simply give it to the city as a gift. If they succeed, it could become one of Germany's most important landmarks. Kühne is also planning, together with a few other Hamburg entrepreneurs, to buy up the Elbe Tower, Rene Benko's failed project, to complete it. Work on the tower was stopped 2 years ago after Benko's spectacular bankruptcy, and it has been a ruin ever since. Kühne and the investor group's plan is, among other things, to house a new natural history museum in the Elbe Tower. However, there are still many problems with the planned takeover and a lot of criticism. Kühne himself recently said that he cannot rule out the possibility that the Elbe Tower might also remain a ruin. Incidentally, Kühne doesn't feel uncomfortable in politics either. He has been familiar with Hamburg's former mayor, Olaf Scholz, for many years, who also made him an honorary citizen of Hamburg. Before the traffic light government, he also said in interviews that he could well imagine Habeck as the next chancellor. But at the same time, he donated thousands of euros to the CDU. You see, Klaus Michael Kühne is a man of contrasts. On the one hand, he is a tough businessman who hasn't paid any taxes in Germany for decades. On the other hand, he is a generous donor and sponsor of dozens of projects in his hometown. On the one hand, he is a cool strategist. On the other hand, he is an enthusiastic culture lover. On the one hand, he is a doer who has built up a global corporation. On the other hand, he is a privileged heir to a large company. So here you have it, folks. If you enjoyed listening to the history of Klaus Michael Kühne's wealth, then kindly leave your comments in the comments section below, and thanks for tuning in. I will be back with the next broadcast. Good day.